Hey y'all, we back.
Hi.
It's Laverne at Badger at Let's Talk.
It's Natalie Hayden with Natalie Hayden Wellness.
We are exposed.
Exposed, yes.
So our first podcast.
This is it.
This is it. This is the official.
This is the number one.
Cheers.
Yes, cheers.
It took a lot for us to get here, you guys. You don't understand kind of the emotional space we had to be in to get to a point where we wanted to expose ourselves along with being able to help others doing so.
Absolutely. So we're really just going to nail it in the coffin with this one. This is going to be an attention grabber for sure, to really set the tone in a way where we're just going to move forward in more of a positive light. We're going to be talking about
mourning the loss of your abuser.
Mourning the loss of your abuser. And I know many people are thinking like, what? Mourning the loss of your abuser?
Who mourning the loss of that fool?
I ain't thinking about him.
Right, right.
But let it be told, there are 5 stages of loss, 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
You know, when you are no longer with that person that occupied a space for a short or long period of time, no matter what it is, and they're no longer there, that is a loss.
It's a loss. It's a loss.
You know, so within that space of grievance, there is, phases that we go through, and we want to talk about those and how we ended up in our space, which at the very end is, the pathway to healing.
Because you just don't think about that we should be grieving or mourning an abuser as if that's a loss. And so I was really intrigued. I'm looking forward to those stages and talking about those stages, because even when Natalie and I talked about them, it was like, oh yeah, I ain't comfortable with that. I know Natalie was like, So, but we gonna give it to you. We just gonna take a little. You wanna take a little sip?
Yeah.
And we just gonna dive right on in. Mourning the loss of an abuser.
Yes. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so we got 5 stages of grief. The first one, denial.
Denial.
I think anybody can. You lose
Relate.
grandma, grandpa, Pookie, Ray, and them. Why? This cannot be.
Right.
This ain't happening.
It ain't happening.
It's a state of shock.
Yep.
You just like, okay, what is going on?
Right. Like this is somebody else's family. This ain't my family.
This don't
right
happen
now.
to
This
me.
ain't happening to us.
Right?
Right. Or this don't happen to my type of family. This doesn't happen to me and my status of growing up, or my neighborhood,
Right.
But no.
So yes, denial. And that's a serious one. And guess what? Everyone's denial phase is definitely different.
Right.
There is no set time frame for how long you may stay in that phase of denial, but it is definitely a part of that, the 5 stages of grief. The second one is anger.
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah.
Anger was a big one for me. And so that stage is, I think, a big one for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And so not just in the domestic abuse area, but just like overall is of grief, is that I'm angry. Why would this happen to me? Mm-hmm. Why is this happening to me? Why am I letting this happen to me? Who? And then it was not just angry at the abuser, it's angry at myself. Like, how am I? What kind of woman?
What was I thinking?
What kind of woman allows herself to be beat by a man? What kind of woman allows herself to be talked down to by a man?
Or what person allows, this person to have that type of control over them, that mind control? Because let's just be real, domestic violence is just not about the physical. Yep. It's also mental, emotional, financial, spiritual. Yep. It's so many components that falls under that umbrella of abuse.
Yep. Absolutely. And so anger, for me personally, anger lingered a lot longer than I wanted it to linger.
I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. Do you think the longer it takes for you to get from one stage does it help you or does it hinder you from getting to the next?
Well, once I was out of the denial stage, that's what allows you now to be angry. If I'd have still been in the denial stage, I can't be angry if I haven't admitted to what I'm going through at the moment. So I think the stages that the people that have done the research really are on to something to say that these stages are in order of how our emotions are how it happens, how they play out, right? And so you'll see in the next 3 stages that how it just kind of all plays a part, and you can't get to our end result of healing until you go through all these other ones.
So as we're going through, no matter how long it takes a person, you eventually got to go through it. I know as for me, anger did not last too long. I was at a point where I was more so angry with myself because I questioned, how could I have allowed myself to go through this?
Right.
And, why did I what was it about me that allowed myself to be connected to something so toxic such as that? I just questioned that. And there are times where that question may double down every once in a while just to make sure, I'm on my P's and Q's, but I had to really deal with that in a way, that energy of anger. I wasn't willing to insert that and give that person that space. I just wanted to heal as quick as I could, but I knew it took time. So the anger, it can vary from person to person, but it's a necessary stage, and it usually happens right after denial.
And don't feel bad if you're going through it, because it is. It's a necessary stage. It's something that we're going to feel, and allow yourself to feel it.
Absolutely. Yes, you got to lean into it.
Just don't stay there like I did. And so,
hey, you got to do whatever. Everybody's journey is so different.
Everybody's journey is different.
Yes. So the third one is going to be bargaining. That's a tricky one. Vern, you want to talk about that?
Bargaining is like she said, one of those tricky ones where you kind of trick yourself into, if this happens or this happens, we'll be this nice, happy family unit, and he will get over his issues, he or she will get over his issues. And for me, I was just like, okay, if we go to counseling.
Girl, counseling, have you ever been left at counseling? By yourself?
Well, you have to be left at counseling if you ever go. We never got to counseling. But yes, being left at counseling, that's pretty bad.
Man, it was bad.
Okay, here we are. We're exposing ourselves. Okay.
Yeah, hello. So
yes, it's just one of those tricky things where we talk ourselves into saying that maybe there's one more thing we can do or one more thing they can do, and we can fix this.
And to me, that falls under the lines of like someone that's like a people pleaser. And I know as for myself, you have to know the type of person that you are. I wanted to fix it. Most women are fixers, within a relationship, and they just say, well, maybe if I just attempt to do this, or, my kids deserve to have both parents. They deserve to have both parents.
I remember saying that my kids, that they are going to have original parents growing up. They are going to have their original parents, and I was determined.
Yes.
And I would talk myself into that. That's why I'm staying, because they deserve to have their original parents, because their original parents are going to be the only ones that love them all the way authentically, and that there was nobody else outside of the two biological parents that was going to be able to love them.
Can you imagine how many people end up staying in that phase, in that relationship, that toxic relationship, for that very reason? And it's so real. Yeah, it's so real.
Yes.
So moving right along, the next one, the fourth one, is depression. And girl, let me tell you, you want to take a sip to that one?
You might not want to be drinking when you're depressed. That doesn't make things better.
However, depression is so real, and I never looked at myself as a person that gets depressed, because I'm just a naturally high energy,
She is for real.
Like I just I don't see myself like, dude, you got to get out of that. Like, how do you? But I did find myself going through a phase, a moment, and when I tell you, for me, it was a moment. It really was just a moment, and I had people that I could call to help me with that.
And mine was different. I stayed in just like I stayed in my anger a long time. I stayed in my depression a long time, and part of my depression led to a suicide attempt for me.
Wow. See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Dang.
So it did. It turned into an attempt, and it wasn't necessarily that I wanted to die. Mm-hmm. I just wanted the pain to stop. End. I just wanted the numbness, all of that to stop. I just wanted everything that was going on in my head, to stop. The thoughts, the fear, the anxiety. Mm-hmm. I just wanted it all to stop. And when you get into a deep depression, it's very hard for you to pull yourself out of that by yourself without specific help,
What was the specific help that you relied on to get out of that? Because it just seems so like a dark place.
Right. So when it was the kids, and knowing the kids was the ones that kept me from going over the edge prior to the actual attempt. But it wasn't working that day. Mm-hmm. I was talking to myself like, I'm not leaving my kids here. I'm not leaving my mm-hmm. kids here. And but that particular day, the kids didn't work. Mm-hmm. And so when I did it, it wasn't until afterwards where I admitted to one of my cousins, Margaret, that she knew that I did it, and talking to her and her having these very detailed conversations with me about why would you do that? It's not mm-hmm. going to change anything once you're gone. Right. He's still going to be here, but now you left your kids with him, mm-hmm. And you don't know what'll happen with that. And it just was, and then I started seeking out things. And so it was, back in the day, it was Ricky Lake, Oprah, Geraldo, everybody, it was all these women that were coming out on these talk shows, but they were talking about things that I was going through. Mm-hmm. And so I would watch those shows and I would start pulling from things that they were saying, like, you're not the only one. First of all, you're not the only one that's going through that. Mm-hmm. Two, that here's some of the things that you need to start doing to get yourself out of it. And so it was actually TV, and because I didn't go anywhere, so it was mm-hmm. kind of TV. And then my spouts of staying at the center, Sojourner mm-hmm. Truth, and groups and stuff like that. So that was one of those things. Those were some of the things that I pulled from to kind of say, this will never happen again. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to allow myself to get to that level ever again, and I haven't.
Wow. That was that was a heavy hitter for me.
But we exposing it all.
Yeah,
right?
You're right.
I can't help anybody or help the next person, the male or female, get to that, out of that space if I can't admit to my own truths. Yeah. And being at that low point is my truth. Everybody doesn't get to that point, right? But those of us who really get to that point, here's some of the pointers of hopefully that that you're worthy of being here, and that there is never a reason that you need to leave this earth. There are a mm-hmm. lot of resources. Natalie and I, we're just kind of putting it out there that, you can reach out to one of us and talk to us. Yeah. And we can direct you. If we can't help you, we can definitely direct you in the right direction. So, because depression is very real. And suicide is extremely real right now. So.
Yes. So, you can feel the weight and the heaviness of depression. So now we get to move on to a little bit more enlightened portion of the 5 stages of grief, and it's acceptance. And acceptance is a space where you get to say, you know what, it is what it is. I did my best. They did their best, but it's not even about them at this point. Right. It's about me and starting a new normal. And what does that look like? Right. That acceptance piece. And for many people, it's so different. But what do you think acceptance?
So acceptance for me was saying, okay, you here, single mother of 4, welfare, temporary job. This is my life right now. Accepting it and then figuring out what I'm going to do to change it. So I knew that I was at that point. I accepted that I was in an abusive relationship, that my father was abusive. I accepted the fact that I did not have my full education that I should have. I accepted the fact that I had brought in 4 beautiful children in this world that I was struggling to care for. You know, accepting, once you start really accepting your reality, then that gives you the ability to change it.
Yep.
Again, if you can't accept it, then you can't change it. If I can't put it all on the table, whether or not I admit it to anybody else.
Right.
But when I lay down at night and I'm thinking to myself that this all happened to me and I'm accepting what's going on with me, then I can start planning and moving forward.
I'm so glad that you laid that groundwork, because I know for acceptance for me, I had basically accepted even before I had left. And when I made that conscious decision to just say, you know what, I may end up, things may be a lot worse than what it is.
Right.
I had to accept that it's going to be difficult.
Right.
I had to accept that I gave my best.
Yeah.
I had to accept that, the very thing that I feared, being a single parent, was upon me.
Right.
Like I had to accept that I'm going to have to be strong and do all of these tough things, and also be vulnerable and exposed in a way that could cause people to judge me, but also accept that I just don't care.
Right.
Because it is what it is. Everyone's journey is just so different, but that acceptance is just so broad. You just have to, like she said, lay it out there for yourself. And then that's where we end up where we are today, the sixth one.
Yes.
Healing.
Healing
is where, you can, oh my God, you can give back.
Oh my God. Without that heaviness and pain or tear, healing is where you put that survivor hat on proudly. And healing is when you can have a conversation with somebody. You don't care who it is. Stranger, it don't have to be your confidant anymore.
Right. You
okay with sharing your story with people. That is healing. That's where I'm at. That's where I put it all out in my book. It's the best. It's not perfect.
No.
Because I still feel like there's some things that I'm still healing. It's an ongoing thing, because there's triggers. Some triggers that you
people don't
know.
talk about that.
People don't talk about triggers,
but they real. Oh,
triggers
are
real. Triggers are real.
Yes.
We're gonna have to do an episode on triggers.
We're
gonna have to do one on triggers.
Yes,
Triggers are real, and so there are still some things that are triggers. But I know one trigger. I won't go into, but I didn't even realize it was a trigger. And some triggers you just don't realize they're triggers until it happens. It comes up upon you. But then and when you're in a healing space, you are able to deal with that
and
trigger.
Recognize it.
Recognize
that right there puts me in an uncomfortable space.
Right. And I know how to handle it now.
Yes.
So if it's a trigger from another person, let me have that conversation with them and let them know that we can't do this. This isn't comfortable. I don't like what you said about this. And we move on. So when you're in a good space, you're able to articulate what those triggers are for you so that it doesn't happen again. Right.
So within that healing, I feel like for myself, I was able to create boundaries. We will eventually have a whole podcast on boundaries. Not just boundaries for other people, but boundaries for yourself.
Right.
I have to set boundaries for myself because, we're imperfect.
Yes.
You like to go to things that are familiar. And so we have to relearn how we need to make sure that we don't head back into a space.
Right.
Like from where we came from.
Absolutely.
So the continuing healing it's like right there.
Doing
it's happening.
The work, giving back to the community.
Yeah.
Coming up with solutions.
Yes.
Exposing the myths and the untruths and collaboration with our men. All of that I feel like is healing. And it's not just healing for you and I.
No.
But because I think other survivors of all sorts of abuse, have the same experiences, and I think healing comes different ways for different people.
Yes.
But I think the end goal is just to be in a good place where you can authentically be able to help another person. It's just to be able to pay it forward. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing here. And so we thought this is our first show. And I got really deep, didn't I?
Yes, you got real deep, more deeper than what I got. But
no, this was my story though.
That's your truth.
And this is my truth. And at this moment, that there's going to be another episode where I don't have to get as deep because that's not my truth.
That's right.
It'll be your truth. And so we want to pose some questions to you all.
Yes.
So one of the questions is, what do you think when you hear somebody saying that they are mourning the loss of an abuser? Did you judge that person?
Yeah.
Would your friend, sister, mom, would you be accepting of them saying, I'm mourning this person, or would it come off as judgment?
Would you think automatically she about to run on back?
Yes.
Here we go.
Yes.
I mean, if we judging, because that's where many people come from, that space, but the idea is to recognize that can be a reality for some people. Right. And that can allow people to not want to share that they are going through this mourning or this loss or grief of a loved one or a spouse or whoever you are getting away from. I know as for me, I felt a certain way definitely when someone was like, oh, you're mourning the loss of your abuser. And I was like, I don't miss that fool.
Right. Right. But then you go back home and you laying in that bed by yourself and you
my family unit is no longer disconnected. So that's
because you have nobody to talk to. Because the one thing that we don't want to do is to admit that that's what we're feeling at that moment. Mm-hmm. So I'll say, I'm going to leave with this, is that if you're somebody who is not necessarily in that situation, but somebody's in that situation, allow them to have that mourning period without judgment. Let them understand that is a natural instinct. It's a huge loss. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going back, but they need to allow that time to get to the next steps. These steps are in order for a reason, and so they have to go through that. So as a friend, as a family member, as a co-worker, just allow that. If you're on the outside looking in, understand that there's more things to it.
Yes. And so what we're going to do at the same time is we would love to just post the 5 stages of grief on the podcast, maybe in the not in the show notes, but in the comments area, so you can check that out and see where you might land, because everyone is in different spaces all the time. And then just just recognize and do your best to not cast judgment on people. Right.
So yay! So we're gonna let you guys go. Thank you guys for spending this time with us, and our first episode down is only great going up from here, right?
Yes. So we look forward to seeing you guys and chatting with you and sharing this space with you all on the next podcast.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Laverne Badger, let's talk.
Natalie Hayden Wellness.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.